Hey, can you hear me, Sam? Oh, there's a person. Okay, well, we'll do the thing. I think I've got streaming right.
It's the Chloe
Hey,
if
Chloe.
we're trying to wait for people.
Oh no, it's fine. I'm honestly just kind of doing freeform stuff today anyway, and people can just follow along if they want to. Just do your thing. You gotta copy the channel link and stuff. I will never get this. There's always too much stuff. You gotta copy the channel link and post it with your app developer tab. Whatever. All right. Okay. So let's see. Um, don't worry about it now. Yeah. And okay. So I think I've tried recording the settings I have in OBS like 10 times now, and supposedly it should work. So I'm gonna switch over and we're gonna try it. All right, everybody, welcome to Game Design with Dr. Gabe. So we're going to be digging into an interesting project today. I have been given a couple of challenges that I have set upon to solve. And so I'm just going to take you all through my process of how I went about those and spend some time working on this one that I have. If I get to a stopping place with it, we can switch back over to the Unity project with the 2D animation that we've been doing. But if not, we're just going to work on these projects today. So the first challenge that I received was a fun one, which was to go to any culture in actual human history, pick a character from it, and turn them into a champion for an RPG game. So I decided to take on the challenge of Artemis from Greek mythology to do that, and had a lot of fun doing it. So so let me just take you through the process that I went through to do that. So as I said, with basically any sort of game design challenge, I'm always keen on capturing a certain emotional experience. And so for the emotional experience I wanted to capture for Artemis, the first thing I needed to do was to learn a bit about her. And somebody's got some background noise. I don't know who it is.
Oh, sorry about that. Let me get muted real quick.
No worries. Feel free to chat and stuff. But anyway, here we are. So I decided to go with Artemis. So the first thing that I did was I got to learn some things about Artemis if I'm going to design a cool Artemis champion. So I just went to Wikipedia and was like, what's the deal with Artemis? So let's look her up. And Artemis is, as I said, the goddess of the hunt. She's also responsible for a lot of other cool stuff like the moon and childcare and all sorts of cool stuff. And so I decided to go and just research a bit about her, different symbols, different myths related to Artemis. And so you can see even in the statue here, she's got the deer with her. She's also often depicted with bears and wolves and other creatures and stuff like that. And there was a particular myth that I think really made her stand out to me, which was the story of Actaeon. So Actaeon here had he done effed up. He boasted that he was a better hunter than Artemis, and Artemis is pretty vengeful. So she decided it would be cute to turn him into a deer and have him be eaten by his own hunting dogs. So that was fun. I've got some chat coming in. Zach G is having trouble with his game, FYI. Yeah, he's asked me about that. I don't know anything about that, but maybe Chloe does. So yeah, she basically was like, you know what? You think you're so cute? You think you're a good hunter? That's funny. She turns him into a deer and makes him get eaten by his own hunting dogs. And she does that kind of stuff a lot. She's pretty big on like being like vengeful and like turning people into beasts and all sorts of stuff. Typical Greek god stuff. So I was like, that definitely gives a fun basis for some move sets and stuff. Cool. So coming back over here, that's sort of the narrative legacy that I decided to go through. And then I decided, well, what kind of game? So the challenge was to turn her into a champion for a game. I decided to go with League of Legends just because it's a pretty well-known game with very well-defined abilities and stuff like that. So I decided, okay, what do I want to do for that? With League, for people who haven't played it, it's a 5 versus 5 multiplayer online battle arena. You've got 5 different champions. They've all got unique abilities, and they tend to play different roles on a team. So certain people are attack champions, some are mages, some are more stealthy, and they hunt in the woods and kind of spring out and ambush you. And so, considering that we have this character who is a huntress, I really wanted this idea that she be what League of Legends would call an assassin. So their job is not necessarily to be the person who's going to like charge down the center of the lane, but rather be the person who's going to kind of hang in the back during a group fight and then see if somebody tries to peel off and run, they're going to go stalk them down and end them. So kind of that huntress thing. And I also, because of this idea that we have this guy Actaeon who boasted that he could be a better hunter than her, I like the idea of her being a hunter of hunters. So I liked the idea that she not only be good at the hunter role, but specifically be good at hunting down and sort of disabling and countering other hunters. So that's the experience that I wanted to provide with this. And so these are the abilities I came up with. So with her standard range attack, just be a bow attack. In the myth, she inherits that from a Cyclops, so I call it Cyclops Bow. I gave her a passive ability called Hunter's Mark. So Hunter's Mark places Artemis's sigil above the enemy's head for. They told me not to worry about balance, so I just stuck, placeholder figures here. But let's say 3 seconds. While marked, the enemy's movement speed is reduced, and they cannot become invisible, i.e., while in brush. So League of Legends has a mechanic where you kind of run in and out of these bushes, and if you do, you disappear and you can't be targeted. Artemis, being the great huntress that she is, when she's marked you with Hunter's Mark, if you try and run a bush, she can still see you. And you're slowed down. If Artemis deals damage, the mark's timer is renewed. So I like this idea that if she's marked you but continues like rain arrows on you and stuff, it's like she's got you in her sights and you're not getting away, and you're not getting away from that mark. Volley is a basic just shoot up in the air and rain arrows down on a target type of ability. I have it represented on the left here. So this ability range is just how far from Artemis she can cast that, and then once she's activated it, this little yellow selector comes out that allows the player to click where in their ability range they want it to go, and click it, and that activates the ability. And then we see the hitbox has sort of 5 arrows raining down within this circle, dealing 30 damage each, and applying Hunter's Mark. The thing that makes this interesting is the ability for it to skip over barriers. So League of Legends has this ability for people to use an ability called Flash or other abilities to sort of get out of danger by dashing over a barrier to safety. Because I like this idea of Artemis being this huntress who hunts people down, I like the idea of her being able to pursue people and break that strategy. So if you try and run from Artemis over a barrier, she can still get you. So I like the idea of this being a thing where once she's marked you, you run over the forest, you think you're safe, but what you don't know, she can still see you, and then she rains arrows on you from beyond the barrier. So that's why I came up with Volley. With Champion's Leap, I decided to take that a bit further. So one of the symbols of Artemis is that she drives a deer-drawn chariot. So I like the idea that she could summon this chariot and launch over a barrier, applying knockback to an opponent in Hunter's Mark. So she's giving you a chase, knocking you out of where you're trying to run to, and then perhaps following up with some arrows and keeping your distance. Uh, Call or release the hounds. I like this one a lot. I think this is the most unique part of this champion. League gives you the ability to control sort of familiar characters by using Alt and right click. So, for instance, Annie, the bear, has a bear that she can command around like that. My favorite Artemis myth is when she met Danny DeVito. That is a good one. Thank you, Chloe. Um, so she the idea is that she's got a dog, a hunting dog with her, and she can either have this dog in a defense mode, which just keeps the dog by her side. It'll attack things that approach her and apply Hunter's Mark if it deals damage, but also to be able to use E to switch it to a hunt mode where she can command the dog separately. And so, because League is very much a team based game and you're kind of always trying to have good map awareness, this allows Artemis to have this dog that can run around and literally sort of sniff out the enemy and apply that Hunter's Mark, which gives greater visibility to Artemis and her team. Lastly, Divine Retribution. So every League of Legends character has an ultimate ability. So this is something that you kind of want to save up and only use when it's time to do so. And so I used the Acteon myth for this ability here. So the idea is that she's going to cast this ability as a cone from her body. She's going to have 3 hounds that spring out in a cone. And if any of those hounds make a collision with a champion, they are temporarily transfigured into a deer and instilled with fear, which is a status in League of Legends that makes the character sort of blind, makes the enemy player lose control of their character, and it runs while the dogs pursue and gnaw on them for a matter of seconds. So I like this. I like this champion a lot. Kind of getting at, again, I think the thing that makes her. Well, actually, let's talk about how we balance this too, though. So I decided to make her a lower health, lower defense champion. I mean, she's got a lot of movement abilities. She's got a lot of different stuff that makes her powerful. So we got to balance her out a little bit, make her kind of squishy. So she's good at keeping her distance. She's good at using her chariot leap, sometimes to pursue, but also sometimes to get away. Really big on making sure that champions have multiple uses. So she's able to keep her distance, rain arrows, and keep back and keep pressure on fleeing enemies. But if she is pressured herself, she's got to stay back. She's got the lower health and lower defense. What else did I have in there? I had some alternate designs. So one idea I had was actually to give her 2 hounds, and instead of having the defense mode and the hunt mode, to have her be able to control multiple hounds and use E to switch in between them. Ultimately, I kind of decided against this because it would really, I mean, League is already a pretty fast-paced game, and you need some really strong RTS skills to be able to do that. If you had to manage 3 different entities, 2 is already sort of a new thing that would be putting a cognitive load on a player. 3 seems like it would be perhaps excessive, but I don't know. There might be a player that actually really relishes that, so I have that as an alternate design. Something could be tried with some player testing. And then finally, with this hounds situation, it's always good when you're doing a design to get feedback from people who play the game. So I've showed it now to maybe 3 or 4 different League players, and there were some concerns that this ultimate might be OP. So one idea that I had was, well, what if the dogs here had health such that in a big team fight, maybe Artemis releases the hound, they jump out there, they're springing on the deer, but then a champion on the other side drops sort of an area of effect spell that knocks out the dogs, right? It would allow the player to have an opportunity to counter this ult. And the players I showed it to liked that idea and felt like it might make it a bit more fair. I actually don't think it's OP, because I basically based it off of an existing power in League of Legends called Crowstorm by a champion called Fiddlesticks. So it's pretty in line with some of the other ultimates I've seen in the game. But I like the idea of allowing that counter to happen, though. So decided that's probably the best design. So yeah, it's basically my process with this was, again, always starting with that sort of emotional experience that I'm trying to create. Like, if I want to play as Artemis, what do I want that to feel like? I want that to feel like I'm the hunter. I want that to feel like I'm a hunter of hunters. I want to be, denying these stealth champions their ability to stealth. I want to be hunting down people who are fleeing from me. Um, I want to be keeping my distance the way that a hunter would. So I kind of brought all of that feel into the play style, while then narratively wrapping those types of mechanics and stuff in the myths that we looked at. So everything that we're seeing here, the fact that she uses the bow, the fact that she has the deer-drawn chariot, the fact that she uses hounds and transfigures people into deer, all of that is directly taken from actual Greek myths about Artemis. So I use narrative there. And then I needed to think about, just the nature of League as a game. I wanted to make sure that every ability that I had would not require some developer to create some, brand new system to accommodate my champion. There's already 150, 160 champions in that game, so I wanted to make sure that the abilities mapped well onto the existing systems. And I also wanted to think about, because League is a team-based game, how would Artemis play on a team, right? It's not individual. They're not going to be all, she's not going to be both a support champion and a tank champion and a fighter champion. Her role on the team is to be the assassin, right? So designing the abilities to match that. So that's how I decided to solve that challenge. And so far, everyone I've showed it to has really liked it. I'm quite proud of it myself. Which brings me to the second challenge that I've been working on, that I've been having considerably more trouble with, and that is to design a weapon system. And the way that the challenge I'm having with it is because there's some ambiguity in the challenge itself, but I've decided to interpret it in a way that is challenging. At least it's what I think is happening. So the challenge was that I need to design and propose a weapon system for a game. And the weapon system for a game, the weapons need to be able to vary in 5 different ways. And I think the way that the challenge is put to me with 5 is because 5 is actually from, if you think about modern day games and the ways that weapons can vary, 5 is a small number. 5 is a small number of ways that weapons could vary within a weapon system. If you think about a game like Breath of the Wild or Bloodborne or something like that, there are dozens and dozens and dozens of ways that weapons could vary. And you get a lot of different emergent gameplay and, variety and cool choices that you get to make because of the sheer variety of ways that weapons can vary. So, challenged to propose a system where they can only vary in 5 ways. What I have been sort of pulling my hair out over the weekend, at the beginning of this week, has been, how do I do this in a way that respects the constraint of only 5 while also providing a lot of interesting mechanics and choices. And so this is what I've come up with. So, actually, before I show you what I've come up with so far, I'll tell you what I was originally thinking of and how I completely exploded, 5, right? So I was thinking of a game like, let's say Bloodborne, which, if you're not familiar with Bloodborne, is in the Dark Souls sort of universe of sorts. It's a over the shoulder, well, not over the shoulder, but it's a 3D action adventure, RPG. You're fighting all sorts of hellish, wonderful beasts, and you've got lots of cool weapons to do that. And so one thing that makes, Bloodborne unique from, say, Dark Souls is the idea of gun parries. So you have your left hand. Let's do that. And I'm just going to do a bunch of sticky notes while I explain this, just different concepts. Left hand. You got your right hand. And so Dark Souls games have always been really big on the concept of shield parries and really popularized that mechanic, and lots of different games have now used those. The idea of a shield parry being that you have your shield held up, but if you swing it at the perfect time in response to a enemy's attack, it creates an opportunity for a visceral attack. where your player has the ability to sort of run up and get like a big old gut stab or something like that, which is, very super satisfying and stuff. And I'm just literally putting these things down as they come out of my mouth so you can see how many more than 5 are already going to be discussed. Hitbox. Attack speed. So in Bloodborne, let's say in your right hand, you've got a weapon that you can do. You've got attacks you can do, and those attacks vary in the amount of speed. It also varies just in the sort of sort of combo of sorts. So like a certain sword in Bloodborne might do a cross slash, down slash, stab, whereas a different one might be like a slower cross slash, big overhead swing, right? So the hitboxes on these are all different. The attack speeds are all different. The recoils are all different. The attack damage is different. Actually, that's right here. You have the ability to do weak attacks versus strong attacks. You have the ability to have damage type. Is it a fire attack? Is it a holy attack? Is it a poison attack? You have the ability to get behind an enemy and do backstabs. Dark Souls came out and did shield parrying, and everyone really got into shield parrying. Eventually, the team over there got bored of shield parrying and said everyone's just playing big, heavy shield characters all the time. So we're going to take that away from you in Bloodborne, and we're going to create gun parrying, where they basically say like you've got to be able to shoot your gun at close range. You can't block the attack. And then they solve for that by making it so that you could attack and get health back in sort of a vampiric fashion. They basically wanted to make the game more aggressive and dex instead of defensive. So that's what they decided to do. Then bring in Breath of the Wild. Breath of the Wild comes out and basically does all of this stuff that Dark Souls did, except they bring in the concept of being able to swap into an actual aiming system with a bow, and if you drop a headshot on someone, you can get a critical on that. So in putting all of this together, what I eventually ended up with was I wanted to have weapons that had unique combos. So if you think about Breath of the Wild, your swords, your spears, and your two-handers all have a different combo, and that's the same with Bloodborne, etc. I wanted weapons with different combos, and I wanted to be able to take advantage of all of these different types of visceral attacks. If you wanted in your left hand to have a shield, you'd be able to play with shield parries. If you wanted to put a gun in your hand, you could do gun parries. Or you could switch to the headshot type mode in Breath of the Wild and get a headshot. Or if you decided you wanted to have daggers, you could have a dagger in your left hand and your right hand. And we would give you a bonus for your visceral attacks on that, and particularly encourage you to go for backstabs. And I was like, oh, this is so cool to come up with all this good stuff. And then realized that after all that work, I had basically just reinvented Breath of the Wild with more steps and got really sad about that. Oh, and I added the elements component of it. So, if you want to add fire to it or ice to it or thunder to it or poison to it, you can do that. But at the end of the day, I did all this thought work and realized I had just reinvented Breath of the Wild. And I probably, even though I had some janky ways that I had justified this only being 5 variables, this is so many more than 5 variables. And so I basically had to throw it out the window and start from scratch. So that's where we are today. But now you know why. Chloe is writing, yeah, but now you know why Breath of the Wild. Breath of the Wild's it's so good. One thing that I missed was constraints. So constraints would be following things. In gun type games, ammo, right? Ammo is a constraint. Breath of the Wild, everyone complained about Breath of the Wild having the durability component and breaking weapons and stuff like that. I thought it was fine. Why? Because it's melee ammo. That's all it is. It's melee ammo. They just wanted you to be able to be constantly cycling and picking up new weapons and stuff like that. And so it's melee ammo. But I know like people are get like bummed out. It's like, oh, I got a cool weapon and it broke. Yeah, I think maybe there's a better narrative wrapper they could put on it. But in any case, I never really had an issue with the breaking weapons thing because it's melee ammo. It's fine. Um, and lastly, a constraint not lastly, two more. Um, what is it? Bloodborne or Dark Souls? They will limit certain weapons that you can get based on your level of your stats, right? So you might find some giant two-handed Zweihander, but they're like, oh, you can't use that straight out the gate. Your strength stat needs to be at least 14 or something like that, right? So that's a constraint they can put on a weapon, saying like, yeah, this thing is a lot better than other weapons, isn't it? But we're going to withhold it from you unless you want to put points into leveling up your strength, which is going to be at the expense of something else. Also, you could do this literally just by making a weapon cost more, right? So, okay, if it's 15,000 gold or credits or whatever it is, I've got to think about whether or not I want to spend that. You can also have things like cooldowns, right? Actually, I didn't mention this in my Artemis design, and actually, I probably should now that I mention it. Make a note to do that. Cooldowns are, the notion that okay, divine retribution is a very powerful weapon. But it's so powerful, in fact, that we're going to make it you can only use it for 3 minutes, or use it once and you've got to wait another 3 minutes before you can use it again, right? So all that factors in. So cool. Let's talk about where I'm landing these days. All right. So where I have landed now, where's my other document? There we are. This is what I came up with, and I think I still need to do a bit of paring this back so it doesn't look like I've called, what is it, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18 variables 5. But really that is actually what's happening here. But let's talk about it. So damage, this is a variable, obviously it's a weapon system. What I have here is base type, DOT, and contextual bonus. Base is going to be how hard does it hit just out the gate. 10 is stronger or is weaker than 20 is weaker than 30, right? Type could be like an element, right? So let's say my fire weapon is going to do bonus damage against ice, but lose half damage against water. But let's say I also want to make fire do something special like damage over time. I can say, hey, I apply fire damage to this enemy. And in addition to the 10 damage does out the gate, it's also going to do 3 damage per second for 4 seconds, right? Because it's on fire, it's burning, right? Contextual bonuses, I did away with my backstab system. I really wanted a backstab system. I've been playing a lot of Bloodborne recently, and I absolutely adore just the visceral attacks of that game. Let's see. Hitbox, shape, scale, sweet and sour spots, and crit ranges. So, with a way that a weapon can vary is the shape of it, right? A spear is going to attack in a straight line. A sword is going to slash in an arc or a sector. Sweet and sour spots within that, right? Like we can make it, if anybody here is a Smash Brothers player, lots of weapons and lots of attacks have sweet and sour spots. So what does that mean? If I'm Marth, especially in the old Melee days, back when I was in college, back in my day when I used to play Melee until 4 in the morning with my friends in the dormitory, we had Marth players, and Marth players love to give them the tip. They just, they would jump in and swing that little sword, and what they did is they put a sweet spot on the very tip of Marth's sword, and if you hit it, it had crazy knockback, so somebody could just keep you off stage and be really, really mean. And get you with a forward smash and send you sailing because they put this sweet spot at the end of his range. And I'll show you what that looks like visually in just a second here. Attack speed. Attack speed sounds pretty self-explanatory. How fast is the attack? But there's some stuff that goes into that, right? So one thing that's really fun about Dark Souls and Bloodborne games is there's a lot of weapons that have this feeling of being very weighty. And the way that they do that is that, but from the time that you put in the input, you hit R1, which tells the game I want to attack. Some of these weapons will have these giant, crazy wind up frames where it's all just flourish, but then the weapon comes crashing down, right? So all of this sort of timing between how fast can a player put in the input when it's going to be received, how long does it take to wind up the attack, how long does it take for it to come down, where are the damage frames along the animation, how long does it take to recover, all of that kind of goes into ultimately what the attack speed is. Constraints, talked about this earlier, ammo durability and cooldown, and that I think is the one that's gonna go, because I think I need to make room for something else. And finally, physics collisions. So hit, stun, pull, and knockback. Imagine you're playing some sort of horde game. You're being swarmed by enemies. One weapon might just sort of bat them back. One might knock them the hell back. One might not be able to really stop them at all. This has big implications for gameplay. And I was like, okay, why? Particularly, I think a thing that I need to probably flesh out here and type is how much I'm going to rely on an elemental system in this. And the reason why I decided to go with these 5 is because with the gameplay I'm about to describe, it allows for self-selected difficulty. Some weapons are going to be simpler to use. Others are going to require more skill, so that allows for differences in skill ceilings and skill floors. It's going to allow for a lot of emergent gameplay when we start mixing all of these different shapes and elements, and restriction of dominant strategies. So, not so much anymore with my new setup. But for instance, if I were using this system here, with gun parry or with headshots, for instance, right? Well, let's say a player gets really good at using headshots. Well, that's all good and fine until they start throwing enemies that either are wearing a helmet, right? So it's always good to be like, okay, you're going to choose to use this strategy in this situation, but every once in a while, I'm going to throw something at you so I can interrupt your dominant strategy and force you to do something else. So I decided to, as a brief description, I came up with a Gauntlet Legends style top-down horde fighter. Enemies vary in armor and elemental types, and the environment is filled with elemental and physically triggered traps and hazards. So I basically did this because I was like, well, we are relatively limited in how these weapons are going to vary. So what we can do is we can use the environment to create, a bunch of different ways where deciding which of these weapons to go with is really what is going to be determined by the environment, the types of enemies that you're fighting. So this is what I've come up with so far. I've come up with more. This is more of what I've put on paper. Let's put it that way. So, inputs. I decided also because of the style of this gameplay that. Oh, sorry. One other big. Oh, sorry is going to be the subtitle of this stream. Game design with Dr. Gabe. : Oh, sorry. So. The first part of this challenge was five weapon variations, right? That's the first thing that they said. The other was they said that you could switch freely between weapons at any time. And I decided to interpret that very literally. So I'm thinking to myself, I decided to do away with things like constraints and ammo and stuff like that, because that is not switching between weapons at any time. There's a constraint on that. I decided to do away with the idea of having a level cap or a gold price or something like that. I decided to just be like, okay, you've got this set of weapons for the whole game. You can swap between them at any time, and it's going to be the environment that dictates what the best decisions for you are. And so I decided I wanted to make swapping between weapons in that way as fast as possible. So what I decided to do was... Struggle busing all day long. All right. So let's do that. There it is. It's hiding. Give it to me. Oh, let's do this. Give me metal. Well, we're going to have to use earth, but we're going to say it's metal. No, actually, now that I think about it, none of these are actually very good for this. That's okay. All right. So, if you imagine for me, I can hear all the OCD people screaming right now, which y'all can deal. This prototyping. It's not supposed to be perfect. All right. Oh, thanks, Chloe. Okay, so what I've done here is, if you imagine, we've got our gamepad. We've got all right. So imagine there's a use your mind's eye. Imagine there's a little game, PlayStation controller behind this. But yeah, so imagine you got your D-pad in the bottom right, and you can just single press swap in between weapons, and then with your triggers at the top, you can just single press swap between your elements. And then the only thing you need for the rest of this game, because they have so constrained what I'm allowed to do with it, is attack and move, right? So if you're playing sort of, again, I don't know if any of you have ever played Gauntlet Legends. If you haven't, you've missed out on like a wonderful experience, and you should fix that as fast as you can. But yeah, Gauntlet Legends is this top-down, just enemies coming out of everywhere. You're running around with your friends, just 4 of you. You got to fight them all back. You got to destroy the spawners that are making them. And so it's not a mechanically complicated game. You move and you attack, and you've got different attacks that serve better or worse purposes. And so this will allow for you to toggle between essentially 16 different weapons, but very quickly, right? You can be using the bow of any of these 4 elements, the sword, the spear, or the warhammer, and you can do that very quickly. So in thinking about how to design this game, I was thinking about what would be the player inputs for it. I was like, if it's going to be a very simple weapon system, I want to take advantage of how simple it is and enable how fast the gameplay could be, and making the decisions very seamless and easy. So that's what I decided to do. So let's take a look at what we came up with. Sword, spear, warhammer, bow. That's where I'm at right now. So we got a sword. With the sword has got a sector. So if you remember from geometry, you got a circle, right? When you got a area defined within the bounds of that, so it's right here. So it's called a sector. That's real nice looking. So that's called a sector. So we're going to create a sector, basically cast from 45 degrees above to 45 degrees below the direction of the player. So when they decide I'm going to swing my sword, if I'm facing left, it's going to go up into the left, and it's going to swing down, down into the left. And this pink bar is representing the first damage frame of the animation. So what that means is that as the time from the player putting the input in to the end of the animation goes, the sword itself is gonna sort of do this. Ooh, can't really do it that way, but it's gonna do this number, but rotate while it does it. And what that's gonna do is it's gonna create an opportunity for an enemy to hit the collision. If for those of you who have been along for earlier segments of this little design thing that we do, you should know what a collision is at this point. Did I not chop y'all up? All right. Come here, creepy ghost. Shoot. Let's use you. All right. So creepy ghost is trying to come at Link right here. We just need a stick in the game. You can do a stick. Creepy ghost comes in, and if we're hitting right at the beginning of that cycle, it's going to get here right here, and we're going to do damage based on where the intersection of the collider and the enemy is, and we're also going to apply knockback. I decided that was a big part of this, and we'll get to why in just a moment. I have in there that basically knockback is applied as a swat of sorts. So if the enemy is coming in and collides here as the sword is coming down, it's going to basically swat him in the direction that he is. So it's a lot of this kind of motion. If the player were, wonder if I could just do this. This is going to be jank. Jank for days. Jank for days song. Yeah. All right. We also could swat him like this, right? Bonk. Oh, right. So in any case, yeah. So that's the sword. The sword, you'll notice. You won't notice because I haven't explained that part yet. Let's look at one of the things that's different between the sword and the spear. The sword, you'll notice I've made the hitbox all one color. With the spear, you'll notice that I have separated that between sort of the yellow, the orange, and the red. And I decided to create a sweet spot for the spear and a sour spot for the spear. So the notion with this is that when Link starts his animation, he's down here. But first, he's going to raise the spear up, and then he's going to extend the spear over the course of the animation, right? So it's going to, from page up, swoop, and then extend out, right? What I want is for the player to do more damage if they've gotten the enemy at a further extension of the spear than if they jab them and it's a little close thing, right? So that's one of the differences you'll see between the sword and the spear here. The sword, it doesn't care where in the hit zone you hit it. It can be right here up close to Link. It can be at the tip. It can be further or not as far into the animation. It's all going to be the same damage. But with the spear, you're going to want to set it up so that you're landing those sweet spots. And that's going to mean managing your distance. That's going to be managing your angle. The sword I see as being more of a beginner's weapon. It's something that you can just run in there and swat, 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 swat. It's fast. It's going to knock things back. It's basically the sword from Zelda, if you're familiar with that. Whereas the spear, you're going to need to set up your shots more. You're going to manage your distance more. But you're going to be rewarded for doing so. If you do land these sweet spots, you should, over time, actually out-damage the potential that you could be doing with the sword. But you need to land those. Sweet spots. And I haven't talked as much about the environment yet, but when I do, I really like the idea of having like a super sweet collider spot on the tip of the spear that's just like a pool cue that just like sends an enemy sailing in a straight line, which could be knocking them into some sort of trip hazard or something like that. Next, Warhammer. So the Warhammer, you'll notice a difference is that where the spear and the sword, the animation and the hitboxes really sort of travel with each other from the start of the movement. The Warhammer's got this big wind up, right? So I've given it a good distance, I've given it good damage, I've given this good sort of splash zone where once the hammer lands, it's going to erupt outward and send enemies out from where it's been hit. But it's got this big, slow wind up where between the player entering the input that they want to attack and them actually hitting that frame that applies the damage and knockback, there's a lot of place where they're going to be vulnerable. So this is a slower weapon, but with big hit potential. And then lastly, our bow. So we've got a little pew pew bow. So it's just going to cast a ray from the direction of the player, and it's going to send a little arrow along that line over time. The only thing I've put in there as well is that if the player tries to shoot someone who is like directly up in their face, there's a little bit of a sour spot. So the way I describe that is the first frame they're notching the bow, and the after that they've launched the arrow. If they hit the enemy at any point after they've launched the arrow, they get the full potential damage. But if they try and shoot someone with a bow when they're right in their face, it's not going to do so well for them. So they should probably switch to something else. So the everything that I've just described here is basically just playing with the variable of hitbox, right, of range. And so that is why I decided to pick it for one of my differentiators, because it is a differentiator that can be wildly different, can really create a lot of different play style and therefore a lot of different decision points for the player, just based on the shape and hitbox of the weapon. So that's why I picked that. Which brings me to what I need to do for the rest of this experiment, which is to demonstrate the elemental system and how that's going to interact with the environment. So I've decided to go with fire, ice, thunder, and metal. That is what I decided to go with. So where did I write that down? Oh, I did it in a spreadsheet, which I can probably put up on the screen. Yeah. Some of this is outdated now. But basically what I came up with was for fire, if you've got a fire type weapon, you're going to do the base damage, but you're also going to apply DOT or damage over time, which is where you apply additional damage to a target, but spaced out over time from the time the damage is done. I actually can get rid of all of these multiple level pieces because I think those are out. Ice, I'm actually changing this too. I think I just want to turn them into a block of ice. I think it'll be fun from a crowd control and chaos type thing to create things that are unable to attack you but also get in your way. With Bolt, I like the idea of it applying a temporary stun, and with now Metal, after you got rid of Earth, we will be applying a knockback multiplier. Remove the Department of Transportation from the game. Government stuff is boring. Can you clarify for me, Chloe? Remove the Department of Transportation from the game. DOT? Oh, okay. Har, har, har. Chloe's here at the jokes, everyone. I love it. It was good. So DOT, damage over time, not Department of Transportation. You do not need a license to apply damage over time. In fact, if you have a license, the damage that you apply is likely instantaneous. So back to what we were talking about. Metal will be replacing Earth here as being a knockback multiplier. But why do I like damage types? Why do I like elemental systems? Because this is just scratching the tip of the iceberg of kind of how elemental systems can be applied, because it's not just going to be about what the effect is on the enemy that's being attacked. It's going to be environmental as well, right? So with fire, let's just think about some things that fire can do. It can burn grass. It can trigger an explosive. I'm going to say add burning status, because if if an enemy is burning and begins to run, it could set other stuff on fire, right? Fire spreads to nearby flammables. It can light a torch, provide light. So there could be parts of this game that are very dark, and playing with a fire weapon in this case could provide light. Maybe playing with a bolt weapon could as well, but not the metal or ice, for instance, right? So you can light a torch. All right, so that's plenty for fire. Let's think about ice. What can ice do? And I suppose if we're sticking with our government jokes, we won't make anything about immigration here. So ice, we're going to freeze puddles that could be on the ground. We could freeze. It's already freezing enemies. Freezing puddles, creates platforms, could create slicks. I like the idea. Oh, I forgot about this earlier. Fire. If target is frozen, apply wet. So I like the idea that if we use the ice power to freeze someone and then use fire to unfreeze them, they could be then applied with the status of wet, which will be vulnerable to bolt. So create slicks. I'm going to come back to this just because my brain is being soupy. If anyone else wants to think of other things that ice could do in an environmental sense, please let me know. Bolt. I'm going to say apply conductive for sort of chain lightning effects. Zap, wet. Power machine. But all I'm saying is sort of the almost the default. Zap metal. Maybe we could, maybe it could, what's the word I'm looking for? Smother fire. I'd like for there to be a few more environmental implications of some of these things. I don't mind metal not having many, because I don't mind it being sort of it's not as much about the special stuff as it just is about that we make it the bigger collider. Just adds a collision effect on everything, which I think is fun. Maybe just a couple more icy things. Maybe with fire and water and puddles could release steam, okay? So let's see. Zap metal, zap wet. Freeze puddles, create slicks. It's almost the same thing. Freeze enemies. Maybe it extinguishes fire. Maybe they cancel each other out. There are definitely some systems that do that. Yeah, I'm trying to keep. I'm trying to keep the hit. Like I like that Kingdom Hearts thing that they did, where like fire is a ball and ice is a cone and thunder is a AOE. I like how they did that, but I think I'm sticking with weapon determining shape and ice determining effect and environment effect. But honestly, I think this is fine. Um, maybe just maybe just come up with one more thing here. Yeah, metal can kind of be sort of the non-elemental of sorts. I mean, I think that ice's effect is going to be really pronounced in the fact that it's going to like basically allow players to turn enemies into crowd control. So I think that it doesn't need to have as much of a impact on everything around it. Light a torch, provide light, or it could slow them a bit. Yeah. All right. Well, this is good. I think the nice thing too about this challenge is that I don't need to necessarily flesh out everything that could be. I can put this could. These are some examples of things that it could do in the environment, which is probably fine. Ice traps. You can melt them like a bear trap. Traps them in a like a bear trap button and it traps the enemy in a cage. I like that idea. That's cute. Cool. So I think so. Basically, now what I want to be able to do is just kind of create some sort of hypothetical situations where it would be clear, that different uses of these different weapons and stuff would uh, behoove the player. So I'm just going to create some little assets real quick. Actually, I think I've got some spikes from our earlier little jam. There they are. Let's make this a little less egregious. That's not much better. I'm just, you know what? This will be the ultimate test of emergent gameplay. I'm going to more or less just randomly kind of put some stuff around here. And I want a good TNT barrel. Let's do some watery bits. These are shallow pools, but and finally, let's get some freaking enemies out here. Oh, this is going to be a pain. How did that happen? New individuals? Yeah, there we go. All right, so let's do. We'll just use him as our default. All right, I don't know how active people are in the chat right now, but I'm going to say play along with me, if you will. Let's do this. All right, so Link has entered the field, and we're just going to say that he is starting with a metal sword, and that's what he's got. Let's say that our objective, let's just drop some like treasures or something. Drop some treasures in some different places. Okay, so let's say my objective is to get to this first gold star. Anyone in the chat, where should I go? We've got some enemies hanging out. We can say that the blue ones are ice elemental, and the green ones are thunder elemental. So like, what I'm trying to get to this star. Anyone in the chat want to give me a course? Otherwise, I'm just going to do it. You know what? That's fine. All right. So what I'm going to say is I'm gonna move Link in this direction. Let's just group that. I'm going to move Link in this direction, and as I do, the enemies are going to start closing in, and I'm going to have to make a decision as to what I want to do. I see that there is a TNT barrel right there, and so I think to myself, well, I'm pretty cool, and I think that I can land this shot, but I want that TNT barrel to do more damage than just hit that one guy. So I'm going to switch to my fire bow. I'm actually going to... What is it doing? Get rid of the sword. Thank you. I'm going to switch to my fire bow, and I'm actually going to drop this way. And I'm going to wait for this guy to come in. This guy's going to close in. This guy's going to close in. And I'm going to loose my shot with my fire bow, and it's going to hit that TNT barrel, and boom, I'm going to take out, one or two of these guys. And I feel like a bad bee for doing that. And I should make the scoring system in this game definitely should give additional points for doing multiple hit kills and stuff like that, because that's kind of the whole point, right? So awesome, I do that. I like that. And also turns out this guy is an ice type, so the fire bow is even more helpful here. I'm actually just going to follow up and take him out too. I get a little bonus for using the appropriate element against the appropriate dude. So all right, having a good time already. And then that's gone too. And let's try and keep these guys settled a little bit. And I decide, okay, I'm going to reap my reward. I'm going to come up and try and get the star. And this dude starts coming in. This dude starts coming in. This dude starts coming in. And I think to myself, oh, I'm so clever. I can use my fire bow and just keep doing that. Except, oh wait, these dudes are fire types, and I end up not hurting them. And I even end up wasting a bunch of TNT barrels. Oh, that's not great. I need to make y'all grouped. And I end up wasting some TNT barrels. This guy's closing in while I'm being a goof. So I'm like, oh crap, this dude's coming in on me. So I decide to swap to a different sword to deal with this new and emerging threat as these dudes are closing in. So I swap to the sword. But what element sword should I pick? Well, I definitely shouldn't pick metal because this dude's thunder. So if I swing my metal sword, it's going to zap me. So I decide I'm going to go with ice. So let's, how are we going to do ice? Let's drop like a transparent. Let's do, that's pretty icy looking. Bonk. All right, so I applied ice on this guy. So he stopped, and these dudes start closing in. And you know what? I take a swing at them, and because they're fire and I'm ice, I just flip them out of existence. Good stuff. Now I got to think about this guy again. So I decide to hit him with my ice sword a second time. And when I do that, it has a little bit of a different effect. It applies the collision, which is going to send him sailing into this spike trap over here and deal with him. So that's fun. I come up and I get a star. Sweet. Winning my own game. But these guys aren't happy about that. So they all start coming in. And I've once again determined that I don't want to use fire in this situation because they're all fire and these fire TNT barrels are not going to hurt them and they can't hurt me. But I do see a cool opportunity where I've got these homies are in water, which means they're wet. And wet means they're weak to thunder. So I'm going to swap to my thunder bow. I'm going to pop a thunder arrow up here, and it's going to electrify this whole pool. And I'm going to take them out that way. So they don't like that. And that strategy worked pretty well for me. So I'm going to actually go ahead and just keep riding that strategy and try and lure these fellas into the pool. Yeah, so I can just run on up, get up in here, and I decide to pop them with my Thunderbow. It's going to take all these guys out. But It's not going to take out these guys because they are thunder element. And maybe I got this star along the way. So that's not going to work. And they start closing in. And so I decide, can't use metal here. Maybe, fire probably wouldn't work too well here because let's say, that's a good thing to think about. Let's put that back in the spreadsheet. Neutralized by wet. So maybe my fire sword's not going to work on these guys because they're wet right now. So yeah, I think I'm just going to go with I could go with ice, or maybe I could fall back. Yeah, probably ice, right? And now I've got this opportunity too, where I'm keeping pretty good distance at this point. There's not too many of them; they're all kind of in one plane. So I switched to my spear. And I pop a couple of these guys, turn them into ice real quick. Bonk, bonk, and then just send them sailing. It'd actually still be alive though. Interesting. All right, but I run up here and I get the star. Cool. All right, so I got to go this way. These guys are still here. They're thunder, and what happens when thunder stands in wet? I guess that's interesting. I hadn't thought about that. It's like a protective thing for them. This thunder's not going to hurt them. So I probably should, I guess I can't use metal because they'll zap me because they're metal. Have I discovered sort of a difficult situation here? This is actually, you know what? This actually reminds me of like scenes in Breath of the Wild where you have to fight the thunder wizrobes, like when they're hopping around on lily pads in the water, and they're like a real pain to deal with, like for exactly this situation. I love it. My game's got emergent gameplay. Look at that crap. So I'm gonna have to go around because they're being jerks. So now this guy's gonna close in. These guys are gonna close in. What can I do with you? I guess, I actually just realized I can definitely still use my metal bow. My metal bow is going to be... Wait, why can't I use ice? I can use ice, but ice is going to turn... What I did last time was I turned them into a block, and then I hit them again, and that caused them to slide, but they didn't slide into anything. So they stayed alive until they thawed out, and they came back. So, actually, Chloe, that's a good idea. So what I could do is I could turn this Frosty and get them all slipping and sliding. And now I'd get all slippy and slidey, but I'm feeling pro and like I can handle it. So I come up here and then I hit them with my frost spear and then send them boom and send them boom. I don't think so. I like the idea of ice causing like chaos in the sense that it creates obstructions that could obstruct, a horde coming at you, but also mess with your ability to move places. But this is being made particularly challenging by the fact that I had an electrical enemy standing in water. Because otherwise, I could have just hit him with I could have swapped to my fire and taken him out that way. But they're sitting in a perfect emergent scenario that I'm very happy revealed itself that made them difficult to kill. But I like the idea though. If I could freeze, like maybe I swap to my Warhammer, slam that on the ground, turn the lake into ice. Swap to my spear, and then using the ice spear, I pop them once, I turn them into a block. And then I pop them again, and I send them sailing into the spike trap. Boom. And they're done. And I am now able to get this star. Sweet. and we are running low on enemies. So let's just say more showed up. All right, so I'm coming in hot, and I see I've got a lot of guys crowding around the star that I want. I've got a TNT barrel. Unfortunately, the first guy in front is a fire, so I'm just gonna take him out. I'm just gonna switch to my metal bow. I'm gonna take him out. They're coming up. He's coming up. He's coming up. He's coming up. Yeah, you know what? I might just metal bow this situation. I metal bow here. Metal bow here. Can I just? Is that too easy? I guess it all depends on how fast the metal bow is and how good my shot is, right? So they're all closing in. Maybe now I switch to my hammer. Let's go fire hammer, which is going to apply. I guess I'm also sort of, in this case, everything's been a one-hit kill at this point. Probably fix that. So I use my fire hammer. That sends these guys burning, which can spread. Kills the ice guy. Yeah, I like that idea. I like the idea. Okay, so we need to do multiple hits on things that aren't their own element. But okay, so these guys are burning. This guy's not. But I could pop. Let's see. I did. Well, as I said, I did fire sword there, fire arrow. Yeah, I could just play like bat him away a little bit with the fire sword and kind of come here and knock him this way, and then boom, we'll blow up this guy too. Come get this star, and yeah, let's. We need some like metal enemies. What can be metal? These dudes look pretty metal. All right. So these dudes look pretty metal, and I decide I'm gonna pop them with my electric bow. That's kind of using the hit stun to sort of keep them at bay. Then I swap over to fire really quick, pop that, get rid of these guys. Continue to use my metal bow or my thunder bow on this fella until he's gone. Make my way over, get the last star, and GG. So, yeah, that was cool. Good little prototype to try out. Obviously, I think this was pretty easy because all of the enemies seemed like they kind of died in one hit, and I didn't have anything sort of shooting projectiles. So I wonder how much I can literally Control Z my way back to resetting this board. Probably not forever. How far does Miro let you Control Z? That far. That's as far as it goes. But that was interesting. I liked that we discovered this sort of scenario up in the top where having the Thunder guys standing in the lake actually created a really challenging situation to deal with them. So I liked that idea. I'm just gonna run it one more time. I just want to see. I'm gonna run it one more time. I'm gonna move where the stars are, I'm gonna move. I'm just gonna shuffle the board. Essentially, is what it comes down to. The water levels don't suck. The player you're gaming decide right. That's a good point, Chloe. All right, let's stick some stars in some places. Let's get some more traps on the board too. No visual this time of the game. Not sure what you are referring to. Is the stream not working again? Oh, I'm not. Wow. This whole time, y'all. Somebody could
It's
have.
not on Discord. It's on Twitch.
Somebody could have said something.
Sorry, I just hopped on Twitch.
We've been doing this for like an hour and a half. Oh, oh, baby. All right. Saw good. Saw good. Saw good. Oh my gosh, that's too funny. Well, good thing we were streaming, right? That's kind of the point. All right, so let's do some stars and some other places. I'm just gonna make this a mess. This is just gonna be a mess. And I want specifically, I want someone to be demarked as a projectile thrower. So let's. Do I have anyone? Who do I have that I can do that with? Probably got something silly in previous. All right, we're just gonna bring adult Simba. Adult Simba's in this as well from the prior jam. Adult Simba's the big boss. It's like a Lionel. Non-elemental dual Simba. Okay, how about this guy? We'll call him a projectile thrower. Come on. Yeah. Yeah. All right, y'all. Let's run it again. Looks like it might be a little bit more tricky for good old Link this time. Let's drop a few more of these dudes. I'm eventually gonna just break Miro. Miro's gonna be like, there are too many things, Gabe. This is not what this is for. You'll do what I want you to do, Miro. Bonk. Okay, so Link arrives into the scene and is immediately beset upon by a number of enemies of a frost and thunder type. I need to. So I think the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to swap to my fire sword So I'm gonna immediately take out and rush in. He's dead immediately, but this dude applies burning with the first hit. And this guy runs into the back of him and dies. And yeah, anyway, I make short work of them. This homie's closing in. I just turn around and do the same thing right back to him. He's out. All right, so coming in, try and get this this star right here. This guy closes in. This guy closes in. Yeah, there. I guess there's no real reason. Oh, I guess I said that metal smothers out fire, and fire is not particularly strong against metal. So maybe I quickly swap to my fire bow, pop out this guy, but then as this guy comes in, I decide to switch to my. You know what? I like the idea of doing the metal hammer. No, I will do metal spear. So metal spear, I'm able to keep this guy at bay. I'm hitting sweet spots and sending him flying into spikes and stuff. I'm able to deal with him. Come down and get this star. This guy starts coming in. This guy starts coming in. Switched. Maybe I should just get rid of the bow. The bow might be OP. I'll just pop a fire arrow. He's done. He's coming down. I can be shooting. Don't want to use the fire bow here, but maybe I switch to the bolt bow, and that's hitting stuns on him. And he's done. Yeah, I think the game might just be too easy. I think I'm given too much variety. I mean, this could just be fixed by there just being a lot more enemies on screen, or the enemies just having a lot more beefiness to them. But I'm not liking my game so far. All right, so I'm coming up here. This guy comes in. Oh, we've got a projectile shooter. This maybe will make things a little harder for me. So this dude's taking shots. This guy's coming down. Maybe this game just needs a lot more projectile shooters is the problem. Is the solution. So this guy's coming down. Well, you also talk about taking multiple hits. Yeah, that's a good point. Well, the problem is that I've got too many elements that have a slowing or stunning effect. So like the ice effect is like turning people into ice, and the thunder effect is stunning. And so, you know, a guy like this, if he's coming by himself, he's just gonna get frame locked in my stuns. You know what I mean? So there either needs to be a lot more weapons. Yeah, I'm not really sure. Yeah, I know I'm playing not in real time, but even if I was playing in real time, like there just needs to be a lot more enemies, or I think honestly probably a lot more like projectile enemies. Yeah, making them aggressive against your ranging makes sense. Yeah, so let's make this a little harder. All right, so let's try this. So I'm coming here. This guy's coming down. Let's pop him with ice and then send him careening and colliding with this guy, which sends him colliding into the spike trap. I like that a lot. That felt sexy. But meanwhile, what can be my... Back. Let's call that. Meanwhile, these homies are trying to shoot me up. He can't because there's a spike trap in the way. But he's firing at me, and he's closing in, and he's closing in, and this dude's trying to land his shot. And we determined, actually, yeah, these guys aren't elemental, so we're just gonna get out of the way, and I think I'm gonna try the Warhammer here. Yeah, let's go Fire Warhammer. That's gonna be fun. So if I do the Fire Warhammer, what that's gonna look like is I'm gonna have to wind up. It's gonna be kind of a slow, but if I can drop my attack like right here, it's going to apply fire on this guy and send him this way, potentially hitting this TNT, which I like a lot. And that could actually cause a chain reaction that probably would take out both this guy and this guy, probably leave this guy on fire. Taking some DOT. He's still closing in. This guy's still alive. Get rid of that. Get rid of that. No, not that. Yeah, get rid of that. And you know what? This guy probably, while I was doing that, managed to pop me with an arrow. Send me that way a little bit. He's coming in. He's still keeping his distance, probably lining up another shot. This dude probably got killed by the damage over time from the fire. Let's be real. That's done. I decide to swap down and grab the star. And that homie's just doing his thing. So he can be kind of creeping along, trying to get shots on me. Now, meanwhile, this situation starts unfolding. These all start closing in. So I quickly determine I've got some my fire is going to be negated because I'm standing in water. So that's not good. Oh man, this bolt asshole's doing his thing again. But I can still deal with the ice guy easy enough. So I think I'm going to switch to metal spear, pop a couple shots on him. He's going to close in. Maybe he gets a hit on me. They start closing in. I like the ice though. So yeah, so everyone is being protected by water. And I don't even know why this TNT barrel's here. That's just bad RNG because that's not going to do me any good. So you know what? I gotta get out of this situation, and I gotta get these spikes working in my favor. So I decided to switch to Warhammer again, and I don't want to go. You know what? I probably want to go fire here, even though it's going to negate my fire damage. It's still going to give me some knockback, which is good because I want to get these guys out of my face. And I move down here. They close back in. This guy's here. I switch to my fire spear. I've got him on the edge of the lake now. I take him out. They're coming down. They're coming down. They're coming down. Is anyone else coming in? Yeah, this guy's coming in. This guy's coming in. This guy's coming in. Simba's coming in. All right, things are getting a little dangerous, y'all. Coming in. I decide to drop back again. Maybe I got scared. I drop back again, but my fire spear is still out. I take out this guy. Coming in, coming in. I do the same. I'm just going to get rid of this TNT. It shouldn't be here. I drop my Fire Warhammer again, and the knockback works in my favor. Takes him out. Boop, boop. He's coming in. I do the Fire Warhammer here. Take him out. I can run out here a little bit. This guy's coming in. Fire Warhammer, probably not a good idea anymore. This guy's coming in. Let's swap to... oh, good. The electric dude's gone. So let's swap to electric bow. And I'm going to electrify this lake. Bam. He's out. He's out. I do that again. It's suboptimal, but I get a little stun damage on him. Can't do it here. This guy's coming in. All right, I got to figure out what I'm doing. I'm pretty pinned. I'm panicking. They're closing in. I just run for it. I don't know what's going on. It was a mistake, though. Simba's got me now. I just swipe to Ice Sword and just start swinging frantically. That works out well for me. Let's see.
I just realized that you're not joking and that that's actually Simba.
Oh, yeah. That's definitely Simba. Yeah. So, that's dead. He gets careened off this way, which is good. I don't think I quite hit that TNT. That would have been sexy, but it's what it is. And I just start chopping away at Simba, who is not particularly vulnerable to any of the elements. We trade some damage. Maybe he kills me. Maybe I survive. Eventually, Simba's done, and I come up and I get the star. So yeah, this has been cool. This has created some situations that have been higher pressure, which is demonstrating that maybe we're not as OP. Uses the quick use the bow of daddy issues on Simba, says Chloe, like that. Um, we got some jerks over here who are going to try and shoot some arrows at me. This dude's going to try and come around. This dude's going to try and come around. I'm going to try and bait them to getting into a place where I can use my spear and send them up into the spikes by being real good with my sweet shots. Meanwhile, this homie's shooting arrows at me. This guy's trying to come down and do the same. And I just decide I don't like that. But they continue to pursue. They are loosing their arrows in this direction. And I decide, what do I want to do about this? I'm stalling. I'm not figuring out exactly what I should be doing here. Situation gets even worse for me when this guy realizes, hey, you remember me? Tried to mess you up last time. And then I decide, F this. I'm gonna be aggressive. Be aggressive. So I start weaving and dodging my way through the arrows. I switch to my fire sword and I just spam fire sword at them. They take DOT as they kind of fall back and shoot arrows. This guy's closing in. Then I realize, I could get him out of my face better probably by switching to ice spear, boom, and then reorienting myself a little bit, hitting that sweet spot on that ice spear and sending him up into the spikes. Heck yeah, he's done. Closing in, shooting crap, but I know they're probably pretty low on health at this point because they've been taking that fire damage over time. You know what? I just switched to my metal bow, and I take them out. Bam, bam. Coming on up. These guys start rushing in. Oh, this is easy peasy. Finally, after getting, pummeled for a while, I just popped fire arrow right there on that TNT, and boom. Big points. Rinse and repeat on this asshole. Boom. He gets hurt. Pop a couple more fire arrows at him. DOT finishes him off. Alright. Coming on up. Alright, these guys are coming in. I'm like, you know what? I can probably just bully them into hitting those spikes. So I switched to my ice sword. But he dies anyway because he's fire. But these guys kind of come in. And I freeze him and then I knock him. Boom. And spikes. Good. He's done. Good. Can't pull that off on this guy because he is ice, so I switch to my fire sword. Boom, he's gone. Get the star. This homie starts closing in. Simba starts rushing me. I pop a fire arrow and I hurt both of them. Boom, boom. And I decide to play that game again. So I start running back this way as they close in. As they close in, I pop another fire arrow. Boom, that takes him out. Probably lost all these, honestly. I just start chaining them. That I decide to use. I decide to switch to my bow, my thunder bow, so that I can use the stuns to chain them. So it's doing a little bit of stun damage, stun damage, stun damage, stun damage. Got to figure out exactly what the kind of mechanics around. Like, can you freeze everything? If so, how many hits does it take? Probably not, right? But maybe when we get him about here, we switch to our metal spear, which has sort of the collider knockback bonus, and I just kind of sweet spot him into the spikes a few times. Take him out. Run on up, get this star. It looks like we've probably about done it. Oh my gosh, this is like a full level. Yeah, run up and get that star. Run down and get this star, run up and get this star. And there we go. Cool. All right. So we determined that there's a potential for there to be some kind of high pressure situations with this, which is good. I'm not sure if I love. It's like I feel like there's gonna be a lot of kind of like abusable strategies. So I got to figure out how I want to deal with those. And I think a lot of them are going to come down to if there's too much crowd control. Really didn't see the Warhammer coming out very often either. That just didn't seem to be something that I wanted to use a lot or didn't think to use a lot. Hmm. Not sure how I want to change that, or if I like the system at all. Part of me wants to throw it out the window and not do it at all. Which you do in game design a lot, by the way. A lot of times you come up with something you think seems fun, and then you actually try it, and you're like, it's not really fun. That wasn't great. Let's see. You get pressured. Well, that's cool. Probably going to run it a few more times in my own time and see if this is how I want it to be. I think I just need to make some hard rules about how the freezing mechanic works against, like, does it just freeze everyone? The other thing I thought would be kind of fun would be if this game were a 4-player game, for instance. Uh, Individual players only controlling one element, right? So, like, as a team, one player's got all the frost stuff, and one guy's got all the fire stuff, and one's got all the metal stuff, and one's got all the bolt stuff. And so you gotta like communicate as a team to like set up your shots. Like, hey, freeze that guy over there, and then I'm gonna pop him into that trap. Hey, set that guy, freeze that guy. I'm gonna set him on fire, and then you pop him with the bolt because you'll be wet, and that'll apply on that. That could be kind of cool as well. But yeah, got some food for thought on this. But this is why you, even in this super like simple like paper prototype kind of way, just using your imagination to sort of simulate how things go, helps you get a sense of whether or not your design is fun, and that's really what it's all about, right? It's all about whether or not it's fun. It's whether or not the challenge that was given to me was that I had five ways to change the weapons, and that they needed to force the player into making like engaging, meaningful decisions. And I think that was achieved to a degree. I wonder, yeah, gosh, this elements. I wonder if the element system just needs to apply to the environment rather than the enemies. We didn't have any grass on the field either, where it could like fire could come back to bite you. We didn't have it where like well, I guess we had the TNT though. Well, definitely some food for thought. All right, well, we got about 10 minutes left on the stream. Has anyone got any questions or thoughts or want to ask about stuff? This is probably going to take the majority of the rest of my day. Just figuring out exactly what I want to do with this. Connery says A. Well, right back at you, Connery. Thank you. It means a lot to me. All right. Well, that's all I got. So, well, thanks for tuning in, everyone. It's been a fun little experiment. playing with these different physics. I wonder, it might be more fun. Maybe this would be more fun in a not top down, like if it were in more of a Dark Souls type environment. You got your sword, spear would be more of a thrusty thing. More hammer would be good for clearing big mobs in front of you. Bow being an actual aiming mechanic. I know I'm probably making this challenge a lot harder on myself than I need to, but kind of wanted to do something cool with it. But yep, in any case, all right, well, thanks a lot, and we'll catch you next time. Bye bye.
Peace, everybody.